All right, we are back with Tallarino and Tuzzolino, minus Tallarino. Tommy's on his way back, not really sure where he is. He's flying around up in the air somewhere. But we'll pick that up with him when he comes back. We'll find out exactly where he was and why he wasn't here. Anyway, I had left off talking about, with Sideshow Bob, who had to go to school, I talked about the Steelers and the Bills. And I do believe that Pittsburgh will find a way to win this game, only because they need it more than Buffalo. And, well, frankly, they have a lot more at stake. Buffalo really isn't going to win their division, and that's fine because Pittsburgh has a lot to play for. So let's focus on the team that really has a lot at stake, and that's why Pittsburgh covers the 2.5. So the line is 2.5. The over and under is 47. I think it's going to be the Steelers and under the total because there's supposed to be a 60% chance of snow there, but we shall see how that's going to work. Now, another game of interest, which Sideshow Bob and I talked about, was the Seattle at Green Bay game. So once again, you've got a 30% chance of snow in a place that's pretty difficult to play. Now, Seattle has shown that they are human. We've already seen what they've done against Tampa on the road. They're not the best road team, but this is a team that does know how to play in bad weather because they play in Seattle whether the rain is coming in and stopping the game. That's not going to happen. But you see some bad weather, cold, windy, blustery. It's really not the best case scenario for them. But what we also see is a Packer team that knows how to play in snow and blizzard and ice and just garbage like that. So these are two teams that know how to play in weather, but you also have two teams that are they have different motivations. Seattle basically has their division already wrapped up, and they could sort of take the week off. Maybe they could take 2 weeks off. No one's really going to catch them over in the West, whereas the Packers are fighting for their playoff lives right now. They're chasing Detroit, and Detroit has a 2-game lead on them, but Green Bay has weapons again, where they went through a losing streak, and this is a team that's a lot better than what they've shown. They went through a losing streak without a running game. Aaron Rodgers was forced to throw the ball 71 to 73% of the time, and it's very easy for defenses to key on the fact that this guy has to throw the ball because they had no run game. And then Seattle, of course, as we said in our last segment, they did Green Bay a huge favor, and they dealt off Christian Michael over to Green Bay because they had a glut of running backs with Rawls and Procise. Well, and guess what? Rawls is back, but Rawls was injured. Procise was playing, and then while Rawls was injured, Christian Michael was playing. But in fact, Pete Carroll got so much out of Procise that they said, well, we don't really need him anymore. We're going to ship him off, and he ended up in Green Bay. And ironically now, Christian Michael is going to play against his old club, and certainly he has something to play for against his old club, not a doubt. So I look for a very inspired game, and I certainly think that the Packers are going to have a lot of runs over to Michael, and the passing game is going to be there, of course, because that's their strength. But in order to open up the passing game, you've got to have a running game. And so Seattle's going to say, Pete Carroll's going to say, well, all right, we got rid of this guy. Now he's coming at us, and he's got a chip on his shoulder, so now we really have something to think about with Christian Michael. But I happen to believe that the Packers will end up having a big day in the air because Seattle's going to be so focused on the run game, stopping the guy that they got rid of, that I look for Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams to have big games, and hopefully we might see the reemergence of Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb's been kind of on and off injured, even though Jordy Nelson has as well since last season. But Randall Cobb has been sort of invisible in the Packers offense. And I know I've had him on my fantasy team, both of those guys, both Cobb and Nelson, and Cobb just hasn't shown up. So I look for the Packers wideouts to have a really big game, maybe a little less focus on Adams, even though he's been their number one receiver. I think they have to get Cobb back in the game because as they go back towards the playoffs, and let's say they end up in the playoffs, you got to go to your money guys, and Cobb and Jordy Nelson are your guys. Despite what Devontae Adams has been doing, Nelson and Cobb have been there with Green Bay and with Aaron Rodgers, so I really look for some very exciting action, and I really believe that'll be a high-scoring affair. I've got the Packers +3 and over 46.5. Now, last week the Packers covered. I had the Packers, I had the under, I had the Bears, I had the under, the Bears over San Francisco in the toilet bowl. Oh, that was terrible. But the teams have done well. The picks, Scott, they have gone remarkably well. It's crazy. It's crazy. And my average for the season on all the picks that I've had, and I've kept a running total. I'm running at 82% against the line. Now, this isn't a tout show. This is just me giving you some ideas on what I think is going to happen on the field. But then again, that also runs in from the NFL to the NCAA, and we'll get to that in a bit. But more importantly, if you were betting the games as you could have, whether it was from round robins or parlays or straight bets, you would end up with stacks of chips just like these or tickets to cash, and you'd end up with extra money for Christmas shopping. And by the way, I wear a size large. My favorite color is blue, so if you'd like to send me a t-shirt or a hat or a coat or something fun, just remember, sell the bookmaker. I am here. I'm here every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time here on WCOBM. So, moving along, we have the New York Jets at San Francisco. Now, this isn't the San Francisco 49ers. 2 weeks ago, they were the 1-9ers. Now they're the 1-11ers. And if you look at what Colin Kaepernick has done with this club, and I think he's been an absolute cancer to the team. This guy has single-handedly dismantled the team that could win some real games. And it's a tragedy because you see his personal agenda has spilled out onto the field, spilled out onto other teams, and unfortunately now you have one guy that has basically wrecking the chemistry of the 49ers. And now everybody's job is up for grabs just because of that guy, in my opinion, and I can say that. So now you've got the Jets, who are a pretty bad team, and they don't have anything to play for. They're going into San Francisco to play the 1-11ers, not the 49ers. And again, the Jets have a little bit of excitement on their side of the ball because they're starting their quarterback, Perry, that has been basically sitting on the bench. He's been around for a year, been behind Fitzpatrick, but now this kid, on his first play, I remember this last week, during the game, they put him in, they throw him to the fire, say, all right, kid, let's see what you got. And what does he do? His first play, he throws the ball downfield. And it was a perfect pass, a 30-yard pass. Unfortunately, the receiver dropped it. And then another one, downfield, then downfield, then downfield. And that is an exciting kind of a quarterback. That's what the NFL needs, especially in New York. Eli Manning doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't throw the ball downfield so much, even though he's got Odell Beckham. It's more yards after catch. But anyway, I believe that the Jets are going to find a very, very friendly environment in San Francisco. And this is going to be a high-scoring affair. I look for Perry to have a really big game. Kaepernick he's got to do better than last week. Hell, he only had, I think it was 1 for 5 with 4 yards. He was sacked 5 times as well against the Bears. It was pretty embarrassing against a pretty bad Bears team, by the way. So the Jets over and the Jets +3. That's how I see this game. Moving on to the Cowboys and Giants. The Cowboys are at New York, and the Cowboys are getting 3.5. You don't really see that very often. And the over and under is 47.5. So now, the Dallas Cowboys, we know, are a really good team. I just don't know if they're Super Bowl ready, but they're certainly playoff ready, at least for the first game. I don't know if they can get through the playoffs because they'll have to get through a very tough Atlanta team, and we're starting to talk about them, and a very tough Seattle team, which I actually have going to the Super Bowl in a picks that I gave in a show maybe last week it was. So the Cowboys should win this game. The Giants, we don't really know who's going to show up. It could be the great Giants that could score 30 points with a pretty good defense. I just can't see how the Cowboys lose to this team. I don't care where the game is played at least for this game. It's a regular season game. Cowboys have a lead over everybody. They could sit back a little bit, but probably not because now they've got a stranglehold on the division, and they want to say, we are the team to beat, especially the Giants, because the Giants are the team they're going to probably have to play either in their first playoff game or possibly their second playoff game. So they're going to probably see the Giants again, and we know what happens. We already talked about it in the last segment where the Giants could technically play the Cowboys 3 times, and, well, you know, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, as we discussed. But the Cowboys get the win this week, and I don't think there's a whole lot of guessing about that one. And last night, of course, I had the Raiders, and I gave that on ESPN. It was 2 nights ago. So I do a segment on ESPN on a different show, and they asked me about the games, and they asked me specifically about this Cowboy game, and I gave them the Cowboys as I did with the Kansas City Chiefs. And our last pro game is going to be Seattle at Tampa Bay. I'm sorry, it's New Orleans at Tampa Bay. And I don't really know who's going to win. I do believe that the Saints will win this game because they desperately need to stay in the playoff hunt. But the over and under is really where you should be focused on this because Winston has been averaging many, many points a game. His yards are great. He's one of my fantasy quarterbacks. This guy really knows how to get the ball in the end zone, and certainly Drew Brees knows how to get the ball in the end zone as well. So look for a very high-scoring game, over 51, maybe 28-24 is your final. Those games are usually really tight, and that's how it works with New Orleans. See you on the other side.